How long was Neil Armstrong actually on the moon? When did Europe start speaking English? Did Marco Polo really go to China? CuriosityStream is the streaming service for all things history, plus science, wildlife, and more. What's the real story behind the Mona Lisa? We've got that. What caused the collapse of Rome? We know. Where did we find mankind's earliest ancestor? Come find out. For the holidays, give the gift of curiosity with 25% off gift cards for your curious cohorts. It's holiday shopping season at curiositystream.com/gift.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
Steering wheel. Collapse the steering wheel here. Steering wheel. Hey. Hey. Steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on. Whoa.
Do you like my piece? Do you like it?
How the f*** is this possible?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? On the radio. The rest of the race. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down the Hanger Straight.
I am so annoyed.
Hello and welcome back inside the Park for Mayfair podcast number 867. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That should be pretty obvious by now, isn't it? Tonight, for your kind consideration, oh boy, do we have a show for you. Do we have a show, apostrophe S shows? Yes, we've even got notes. I can't wait to get into this, but before getting into this show, I have to introduce my guest, which, you know what that actually does mean when I talk about guests? I've got to go all the way to the right coast of America, nestled in our nation's capital, sipping on a glass of, I don't know, it could be Jack and Coke, it could be a cognac, it could be wine, it could be a glass of Hennessy. Who knows? You know her, you love her. Of course, I have to be talking about the lovely, the redoubtable. Grace, how you doing?
I think a podcast and Hennessy seems like a bad idea for me.
It does seem like a bad idea. It's
maybe a great idea for the listeners, but
yeah. It's about like a
not a good way to
podcasting while drinking tequila for Paul. Yeah. That's right. You know I mentioned him.
He's bad. He's beautiful. He's crazy.
He totally is.
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the international.
Well, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yes. International indeed.
Yeah.
I get to.
I know.
Yeah, good shots for everybody. That's what
I got to tell you, Paul, that picture you snapped and threw up of the Valkyrie was pretty exciting.
Yeah, the Valkyrie is pretty intense. I can't wait to see the race version. Should be coming down the pipeline. Yes.
Yes.
It's gonna be a hell of a year.
Super excited about that. Yes, I'm very excited about that. You got the new GT cars, right?
Yep, got new GT cars. Yep, and
new GT.
And we just announced that I get to go to Australia this year, so that's awesome. Going to Bathurst. We're going to race hard racing. Going to race in Bathurst, and I get to go. So,
is that the silhouetted checker flag car?
Silhouetted?
Paint job that had the
yeah.
Well, it kind of had a checkered flag.
Yeah, it's a Mercedes, oddly enough, but it's just what works with the category and what we're doing. But it's obviously we're racing Astons most of the time, but. They're going to race the Creventic 24-hour and the 12 hours at Bathurst in a Mercedes. So, yeah, I'm excited to go. Awesome. I've never been to Australia, and we know a lot of Australians listen. So, get ready.
We do have a lot. We've got a lot of Australian friends that listen to the podcast. We love Australia. Paul and I have patented. We've said that many shows. Yeah. That's exciting. I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, it's only like 8 weeks away, and I get to land in Sydney, so yeah, it's coming right up right after Daytona. So
you'll show up and they'll be like,
"Get off now!"
What I must say is that the visa forms to get into Australia are very strict and extensive. So yeah, they're keeping the riffraff out for sure. So I may not have a
bitter about the whole English thing. You know, allowing the English in, Paul. They're still a little bitter about that.
A little bit. I don't blame them.
Yeah, right. Well, you'd be happy to know, Paul, that Grace and I aren't racing anything this year. So just
8
not
weeks
what
from
we
now,
do.
I'll probably still be right
Okay.
here
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this chair.
Yeah.
That's right.
I live a
Grace,
lucky
show
life.
the world your new shirt. Show the world your new shirt
Oh.
you got there.
So this was Flip got me this for Christmas. Wait, I'm going to try to
For
make this
those
not
watching
too
on
totally
YouTube.
awkward.
So it's a
Right?
Ferrari
My-
logo, but it has
my-
a prancing cat, and it says Ferrari.
It says Ferrari.
Not Ferrari. And I asked Grace
there
if
we
that
go.
was a Catalino instead of a Cavallino.
And we all grow.
As a Ferrari fan, I
Yes,
don't know.
we
if-
did.
I don't. Yeah, everybody thought it was shit humor, and it was. But I, let's be honest. But I'm a Ferrari fan, so I lash out the first thing I could think of, and it was weak. So for tonight's podcast, right up front, it's a two-parter, folks. It's the holiday season. It's a two-parter show.
Epic.
And let me just tell you what we're going to talk about in this episode. And then next week's episode, we will come to conclusions. It's like the jump to conclusion, Matt. All right.
Don't you get it?
So I'm good with people, damn it. So here's how it's going to work. So look, F1 has been marred by controversies from its earliest days. And since there's a lot of new fans of Formula One and they're really kind of having fun digging into some of these past controversies, and there's a lot of veteran F1 fans that it's fun to revisit these from time to time. So we thought what we would do is we would explore some of the more savory incidents in Formula One in a new two-part podcast series where we thought we would take some topics, and we'll talk them, and then you can research them on your own time. You could even weigh in the comments section and vote for what you guys think.
Yeah.
But we decided to pick our top scandals and our top controversies from Formula One, and we're going to put them into categories on this podcast. And then part 2 next week, we're going to whittle it down. Right. So as Grace said, what about the brackets, Grace?
This week we're going to seed the brackets, and the next week we're going to have the head-to-head competitions. You get, the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, and then you get down to our top scandal/controversy.
There you go.
For this,
so
podcast set.
we thought it'd be fun to do, and so we're going to start off with a category, and then Grace and I are going to look at our list. Paul's going to look at his list, and we're going to throw different controversies or scandals into this category. Grace is going to take copious notes. And so if you're watching this show on YouTube, then you'll see her typing copiously. And then next week, we're going to take these categories, brackets, and we're going to whittle them down to our top ones. And then you guys can see if you agree with us. So with that being said, let's jump into it because we got a lot to cover. And we got a lot of topics that we got to seed the brackets with. So with that being said, I guess, what is the first bracket we're going to be talking about?
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Of all the kitchen hacks I know, Better Than Bouillon is my favorite. It's great for broth, of course, but you can also use Better Than Bouillon as a flavor enhancer. Just a spoonful adds so much flavor to stir fry, sauces, even marinades. Plus, they have reduced sodium and organic options, and the Culinary Collection, which includes amazing flavors like Italian herb and smoky chipotle. Make everything better with Better Than Bouillon. For free shipping on 2 or more jars, use code BETTER at betterthanbouillon.com.
Team controversies.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about team issues, right? So I'm going to scan my notes, but Paul, we'll start with you. What's one or two or more of your team controversies?
I'm going to start with Multi 21.
Ooh, nice one.
That was a juicy one that it kind of kept going even after the event and after we saw the big Seb and Mark Webber getting back together photo. That was the beginning of the
best
end.
photo.
I loved that
Great.
photo. Yeah, we're all buddies now. Yeah, after you just crashed
That's right.
into each other. I mean, there was a lot of upheaval in Red Bull. They had a lot to deal. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
I think Paul and I did a picture of both of us doing that and tweeted it.
Yeah. So if you didn't see it, it was obviously there was a big rivalry at the time in Red Bull, little tussle of who was number one, who was number two, and they ended up hitting each other, both Red Bulls.
Right.
At, was it Turkey? Turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. They ended
It
up hitting
was.
each other, and so that a lot of things ensued thereafter it. But there was supposedly a deal made between the two drivers, or between the team and the two drivers, that whoever's leading at a certain point was going to finish the race in that point, and seemed that Seb Vettel did not want to stick to that rule, and so they fought it out,
He
and
had a
then
different
they
opinion.
bounced into each other in the ensuing aftermath of it. Yeah.
Yes. Good shout. Yes, that was a good one. I
Yeah.
agreed. Everyone has heard Multi 21. For mine, I'll throw in Senna versus Prost. 1989 Japanese Grand Prix. Senna hit Prost, and then he got the assist by stewards or marshals to restart his car, and he went in to finish the race.
But they were just pushing
and
him out of the
Prost
way.
didn't.
They were just pushing him out of the way.
Yeah,
he had to
right.
drop the clutch at that moment. That's
Just happened, right? But it ends up he was disqualified, fined $100,000, got a 6-month ban for it, right? So that was huge. That was earth-shadowing. And then the very next year we know what Prost did to Senna. But yes, that was was a huge no.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Prost was the original one that got Senna on the team, and they were all happy buddies just for a very short time, and then Senna got a little competitive, and Prost didn't quite know what to do at the beginning, and then that rivalry where they didn't speak to each other and rivalry within the team, right? Not just the drivers, the different sides of the garage had big rivalries against each other, supporting their own individual drivers. So
yeah, that was a huge one. Grace, what do you got?
This is a bit of a toss up of what I'm going to go with, but I feel like we kind of have to mention Austria 2022. 02, which was Schumacher and Barrichello when Barrichello was leading the race. Ferrari said, "Hey, Rubens, hey, could you let Michael pass to win?" And he let him pass, and it was so he could get more points, right? And during the podium celebration, Michael tries to pull Rubens up, and he had all this like, "Oh, we were trying to cross the line at the same time. I don't know what the controversy is." So Michael sort of had all these like backstepping away from what had happened, but ultimately, right, Austria 02 is what got team orders banned that were then lifted later.
Yeah,
right.
There's been a lot of instances with that for sure. But it was weird though, because basically Schumacher was dominating the whole year, right, at that point, and it was completely unnecessary, and took the stuffing out of Barrichello, probably permanently, I would think.
Yeah.
I think anybody that's watched the Braun GP right documentary, like for sure that definitely comes up, that he's just like, no,
not doing
that anymore.
Taking team orders. No, not going to do it.
Yeah, it was interesting.
The new improved Rubino.
Yeah, that show was actually interesting because you heard the Button and Barrichello, and you would think at the end of it they would be completely against each other and enemies, but Barrichello says, he was just my friend in the end. But it's like, oof.
Yeah.
But Barrichello wasn't. Even though he was friends, he definitely wasn't given any inch to Button at that point. So.
Right. Is it worth adding 1997 Jerez? Schumacher punting Jacques Villeneuve?
Well, that's not
like he did Hill in 96.
Yeah, well, I'd say the Hill and in 96, was it 96 that happened? I'd say that was a bigger one, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I don't think that's the way JV views it.
No.
I think he thought 97 and ref was pretty
big. Because Schumacher
big.
actually got penalized for it against JV, when rightfully so he should have been penalized for the Hill incident, although I know Todd completely disagrees. But
I disagree. Yeah, but the JV went on to win the title because of it. Right?
He did, but
he finished the race and won the title.
Yeah, but Hill would have won the title if Schumacher hadn't punted Hill also.
Yeah.
So
we got a couple there.
Yeah, we got a couple.
97.
Controversy, a little quiet in the room. Yeah.
Schumacher?
So far, the Schumacher count is 3. Okay, I'm ready.
There's going to be underlying theme here
so
where,
far.
yeah.
Maybe that should be a separate set of brackets. I think.
Maybe I may have to take the picture behind me down then if we're going to go down this route.
Yeah.
I mean, it's his legacy. I think what some view as like evil genius or diabolical genius, other view as dastardly cheater.
Yep.
It's
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Another one I'd bring up is Villeneuve and Peroni, and they're racing.
Some consider that probably ended up with Villeneuve.
Right. Obviously,
moving
it's
on,
safety of the
checking
car
out.
and everything, but yeah, it put Villeneuve in a mindset that he made some poor decisions just because he was so angry. They were buddies before. They made a pact that, once again, kind of like Multi 21, there was a preset rule made, and Peroni went against it, according to Villeneuve, and they never spoke again. And then 2 weeks later, Villeneuve, obviously trying to, still boiling over the whole thing, ended up maybe making a bad move and ended up dying in an incident. And obviously had a lot of ramifications after that stuff.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
That's a good list, don't you think? Yeah, go ahead, Grace.
Can I just add one more? I feel like we should add, if I added Austria 02, which is when they banned team orders, then I should also mention when we brought them back, which was after 2010 Germany, when my favorite Medley family member, Rob S. Medley, informed Felipe Massa that Alonso is faster than you. And after that, the FIA said, threw in the towel, and they were done trying to regulate team orders. Do what you want.
Say what you want.
We're not going to do this anymore. So after 2011, you could have all the team orders you want. So that was the bookend on the team orders controversies in Formula 1.
It was the bookend, yeah.
One thing that really
good.
frustrated me,
list.
obviously I was a Ronnie Peterson fan, but Ronnie always stood by the agreement he had at Lotus when he rejoined Lotus, that Andretti was number one. If Andretti was leading, he would never harass Andretti, right? Even though I always thought Ronnie was a better driver, perhaps. But that's when that was frustrating as a fan of Ronnie Peterson, that he actually stuck to the agreement, right? But some of these other people had different ideas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm surprised none of you had Rosberg and Hamilton, Spain.
Oh yeah.
I try to forget those two, but that's a good one. Okay.
But they had a few incidents, I think. Yeah.
They had a few incidents. Him parking up at Mirabeau in Monaco.
The hat throwing was brutal, violent.
Hat throwing was great.
Yeah.
That could have put an eye out.
It could have.
I might have.
Could have drawn blood.
Just think of all the children that could have had that hat, but no. Discarded it away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reckless abandon.
All right.
There's
What's
a few.
our next category?
There's probably a few
then?
we're missing, right? Too. So.
I don't know. Rosberg Hamilton's a pretty big umbrella there for 2 years. So, all right. Our next category is car controversies.
Ooh.
So this could be anything that came up with the cars, people challenged, people didn't like,
cars,
people like.
people copying cars.
There were some things.
That's right.
Yeah.
Flexi wings.
Copies. Yeah.
That's right.
J dampers.
Double diffusers.
Yeah.
That's right.
Illegal traction control. Sorry, is that Schumacher again? God. How did that happen?
It was Jos Verstappen.
That's true. The fuel filter that was on Jos's car.
Yeah. So what do you got, Paul, for a car controversy?
Car controversy. Well, I mean, there's obviously been a lot of car copying going on. And this is just, I'm only bringing this up because it was part of my childhood that started to unravel with my innocence, because when Arrows came out, I was a big Arrows fan. And that's where I became a big Riccardo Patrese fan, because they led their first race and nearly won South African Grand Prix. And then find out that, in fact, Tony Southgate had moved from Shadow to Arrows and actually took the plans with him and basically made an exact Shadow copy and put it under the Arrows name, which then went back to court. And then I think in a very, very short time, they had to modify that car quite dramatically to away from the Shadow original plans and actually come up with a car that actually designed themselves after Tony Southgate actually left. So,
if memory serves correctly, I think the quote was like, 80% of this car is a direct copy of the Shadows.
Right.
And Tony was like, yeah, but I designed that car for them as a consultant, not an employee.
Yeah.
I wasn't an employee. I was a consultant. And so I think the intellectual property, it belongs with me, not the team.
Right.
Because I wasn't an employee.
Yeah. And such things have never stopped, quite honestly. Especially when we see all the team members switching positions and taking things with them, etc.
Right.
It's
That's right.
why come up with something yourself when you got something perfectly easy to steal?
That's Flavio's raison d'etre.
Pretty much. That's his mantra.
Yeah, pretty much.
With significant others and with engineers.
Yeah, right, right. Grace, what do you got?
I was going to go with Tracing Point, a.k.a. the pink Mercedes of 2020. It was very similar.
Yeah,
sort
the
of,
pink Mercedes.
Pink Mercedes, yeah. Tracing Point, as I like to refer to them.
I've got a few of them that fall in this category. I guess I'll start with the weight of the car. And there's really kind of three that fall into that category. Do you remember Williams and their water-cooled brakes in 82?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they would fill up water in the tank of water. It wasn't just Williams. Lotus was doing it too. And I've memories, wasn't it Paul, because Lotus, Williams, and another team, it was Renault or somebody, they didn't use the turbo engines. They knew they were going to get smoked by the turbos. So they came up with this water tank and said that it was water-cooled brakes. But then they got into the race, it dumped all the water out, made the cars lighter to be competitive with the turbos.
Right. And then you were allowed to replenish because the cars were with their fluids in them. So they were allowed to replenish their massive, heavy water tank at the end of the race to big weight. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 84, you had Tyrrell doing the similar thing, but just did it with lead shot in the car. Right. Dumped a bunch of lead out and so that lead shot ballast, which was interesting. So that was Williams and their water-cooled brakes. I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I actually had that myself when I was racing in IMSA, where there was a car called a Consigliere, and they came into the pits after the cool down lap after a race and changed tires, and then they went to scrutineering to be weighed, and the tires were actually filled with water. They were found out, mind you, but that's why cars have to immediately go to Parc Fermé. They are not allowed to come in, and
it's just like they have like a spigot on them, like a cooler. Like there's just like a little, and you let all the water out.
That's
turn
crazy.
the car sideways a little bit.
You know, and similar to that, Grace, was Honda's secret fuel tank in 05.
That's right.
Remember?
You know, I didn't think of anything about the fuel tanks until this happened, and now everything I know, it comes from this controversy.
Yeah, because at the time, I think it was 600 kilos car weight, and they had that extra ballast in a separate little baffle that held fuel, but when it got down to it, it put the car underweight, like 590 or I was like a handful of kilograms, but it was enough, and Jensen got disqualified. And so that was, so there's three weight related ones that I was thinking of. You have some other ones, Paul?
Yeah, I go to like the fan car.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
that was
that was the Brabham, right?
Yeah, the Brabham fan car, and did one race. They didn't make it illegal or didn't disqualify it, but they just told them not to come back with it anymore. But,
That's great.
Yeah, and it was the big fan. It was just for cooling. But when you accelerated, the back end just went right down the ground. This is when everyone was trying to compete with the Lotus 79 with ground effects, and it was actually more effective. And so Gordon Murray, that intelligent designer, my favorite designer, said, just for cooling. Those Alfa Romeo engines, they get very hot, So Niki Lauda ran away with the race, beat the ground effect Lotus by a country mile, but we're not allowed to return with that vehicle again.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe that's an interesting thing. Is the pink Mercedes the only one that was still allowed to continue out of these? Like, arrows, like all these
Right,
other ones.
they
it was
actually
like,
got caught.
We caught you,
Yeah,
we're out.
yeah. Well, there's been a few things where people copied cars to some degree, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but
Green Red Bull, the pink Mercedes.
Yeah. The actual Tyrrell
and the
copied
other-
this Lotus 79, but did a better job of it, which is weird. But
Yeah. Yeah. And there was oh gosh, I was trying to think of others that were sort of copies. I mean, eventually everybody takes on, the parts that work.
yeah, I think Toyota were accused of copying the Ferrari.
Yeah.
But
was Sauber accused of copying the Ferrari? I think?
Sauber were accused of copying the Ferrari, but then Sauber actually had Ferrari engines in at that time. So I'm not sure they stole the notes or were given the notes. Here, this is my gift to you.
Right.
Yeah. Do what you want with them.
Yeah.
As opposed to Mercedes with Racing Point, with Racing Point, where they were like, well, when we gave them to you, it wasn't illegal for me to do this, right? Like they weren't on the listed parts at the time. They are now, but they weren't then, so it should be fine.
Yeah, a couple of the other ones, the McLaren brake steering, I thought was
very clever.
Yeah, it was very clever. That was what was that, 97-ish?
Was it? Yeah, it's when they came out with the narrow cars with the treaded tires.
Yeah.
So they were trying to figure out a way of actually getting the car to turn, and so they manipulated.
Yeah, and they may have.
Yeah,
they may have gotten away with it. It wasn't for Darren Heath, the photographer, well-known F1 photographer, had pictures of the rear brake disc glowing under acceleration.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a driver-initiated passive traction control, stability control. So, but they weren't deemed illegal. Kind of like the fan car, they were just told not to bring it back. So they kept their
kind of
win.
like the F duct, right?
Oh, the F duct.
We got to talk about the
F duct.
The F ducts are.
Yeah.
Those fall under the McLaren category, which also probably could be its own category next to Michael Schumacher, right?
Yeah.
I think it was Mercedes that had the F duct, right?
Did that? Was it Renault? I remember Cubico using it, or was it BMW? I don't know. McLaren, I think. Actually, maybe McLaren had the first one.
McLaren had the F duct because it's an F. Because
I don't remember if it was Mercedes who did it first, and then McLaren, or McLaren and then Mercedes.
I think it was McLaren.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been.
Because it's called an F duct because the intake is right by the F in Vodafone. The F duct. It's not shaped like an F.
I had no idea why it was called the F duct. I just
go,
figured
right?
it was an improvement from the E duct. Not as good as the G
This
duct.
isn't Ferrari, like strategy H, right? Like
I don't know what that is.
I don't know, man.
Ricky,
Which
what
should
do you
have started
say?
the cottage inders of like your cooling and your heating duct cleaners, that run around, touting, to HOAs. Whoa, come in and clean out your ducts, so they should
your
have
F duct.
You would clean your F ducts out, we can come and do that for you.
And then, I should hate the F duct because the
F
F duct is what brought us DRS.
DRS. Yeah, exactly.
That's
That's why I
right.
was surprised you didn't have it, because you and I hate DRS.
I forgot all about the F duct. That was pretty.
Yeah.
Remember the whole? It was kind of like that. The steering on the Mercedes, pushing forward and changing
brick
the time,
Oh,
right?
right.
It was like I remember just watching the TV and everyone's going, "What's he doing? Why's his hand over there? They're all trying to figure out what's going on."
What's his knee
why is
doing,
he putting
right?
his
Was that
arm
the
against
Dawes?
the side? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they called it the DAWS system or something like that.
Yeah,
and then there was the
DAS,
brake
right,
system.
right.
DAS
The
system.
DAS.
DAS, that was it.
DAS.
Yeah. And then they had Mercedes had the brick system. Remember, where the front suspension and rear were linked. That both the DAS and the brick system and F duct, all three of those, they just politely asked them not to do that. We're going to ban those next year.
Yeah.
Right. Those
Just asking for a friend.
But the J dampers that Renault was running, they instantly banned it mid-season, and Renault's performance went through the floor. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a big one. Whereas Mercedes were just asked not to bring those back, and they banned them for the following year. But the J dampers, that was a really aggressive move by the FIA, which ruined Renault's season. That was a big one. And then I think you probably both have the 1994 traction control with Benetton.
Oh,
right?
yes. Who was driving that car, Grace?
When Jos Verstappen. It was Jos Verstappen that was doing it. Michael said, "No, I want no part of that." And Jos said, "Oh, I'll do it."
We have it on the car. We just chose not to use it. There's a little button over here. I wouldn't.
That's right. It's there,
because
but we didn't
Schumacher
use
is like, "Oh, this will make me faster." What if I push this button? I just don't feel good about myself if I use this.
I know.
I'm Schumacher. I don't need that.
No.
I don't need that. I'm Schumacher. Why would I want that?
He didn't need it. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, true. In fairness, telling on myself, I think it all started in '94 when Larini at Ferrari leaked to the press that they were using a special mapping software. And then that got everyone talking. And then remember, Senna set out a session, went down to turn 1 and listened to all of the cars going through turn 1. And he came back and said, Benetton's using it. I can hear it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And he was right.
But the FIA could never really prove they used it in racing conditions. So,
which is
it's
laughable, isn't it? Really? I mean, they find things on cars that they can't prove they actually used, but they ban them and disqualify people just for it being on the car, which they should have.
But I think it really started with Ferrari. No.
Isn't that like if I get pulled over and there's an illegal substance in my car, I don't go, it's not mine, it's Todd's?
Well, I would say that, yes.
Right.
Like, it's on your car. Even if you say you didn't use it, it was there.
Right.
That seems problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And another one to throw in there, Grace, is the off-throttle diffuser. Remember that? The off-throttle diffuser. And the teams, what they were doing is they had the diffuser on the car, but normally, as Paul has said many times, when you lift off, you have the natural air coming over the diffuser, which provides downforce. And when you lift off, initially that provides some braking or slowing down. But as you start to slow down, that air lessens, providing less downforce to the car. So then you're into more mechanical grip at that point. But the teams figured out that when they lift off the throttle, they could have software that was still burning and running the engine at high throttle, 50, 60, 80% of throttle. So that hot air was still generated out of the engine coming over the diffuser, providing downforce for longer into the braking zones, right?
Yep.
And so they figured out, they called it off-throttle diffuser. And they didn't, that was in 2011.
Yeah, that was all the engine mapping and things going on, and they gave them time to fix that, though. I think, right? They said we're not going to do this, but you got till like after the British Grand Prix or something to eliminate it.
I think they ended up saying that you could run 10% off throttle engine throttle rate, but remember, was it Renault got special dispensation to run at 50% off throttle because there was something, they argued that it was a reliability with their engine, that if they went lower than that, it would destroy their engine. So they were given a 50% throttle, the rest were 10%, and the other teams were apoplectic about that, I remember.
Renault's going to ruin themselves. They don't need any help from any other thing.
Right.
They've got enough internal destruction. So,
right.
Sure,
so anyway,
give you 40% more than everybody else.
There's a few to consider.
Just a few.
Yeah, we got several on the car issue, and that's not to consider, I guess, the other holy grail, which prevented our friend Dave Richards in ProDrive from getting into the sport.
That's right.
Because over customer cars, right? Frank Williams went, ballistic, right? And he said that he would sue Toro Rosso, Super Aguri, or ProDrive if they came in and operated with a leased chassis. That was a no-go.
That's right.
Yep.
And as somebody who every year when we do what are our top, 10 things to bring back into Formula One or bring to Formula One, customer cars is always on my list.
No one could get, no one's allowed to bring in a new team anymore, so it doesn't even matter. But
no, you can bring in a new team, just not Michael Andretti.
Yeah, right.
Cadillac, fine.
The
just not Andretti Cadillac.
Not Michael Andretti. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Right. And Paul, you mentioned
Penske Cadillac would be fine,
You mentioned one, Paul, that before we started recording in '78, the Aero's dual chassis.
The Lotus twin chassis.
The Lotus double chassis. Yeah, the twin chassis design, which was
Colin Chapman design thing came up, and they just sent him home that day. Yeah. So
yeah, that was interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
It's a holiday story. It's a family story. It's a story of thousands of twinkling lights and countless memories. A story of crackling fireplaces and candlelight Christmas evenings, where the sounds of sleigh bells and carols echo all around. It's a story of peace and togetherness, of glittering ornaments, fragrant wreaths, and wide-eyed wonder. It's the enchanting story of a beloved tradition at America's largest home, with 250 magnificently decorated rooms, each with its own stories to tell. But all this can't begin to tell the full story of Christmas at Biltmore. Come walk in the footsteps of the Vanderbilt family and immerse yourself in a winter wonderland of endless holiday delights. Because as wondrous as the story of Christmas at Biltmore may be, it can never be complete without you. Plan your stay at Biltmore.com.
Yeah, they actually got that car running. I think it ran an historic event or something fairly recently, but yeah, definitely a one-off.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. What's the next category, Grace?
Political wars.
Oh boy, here we go. Here we go.
Small category. There's nothing like we can just breeze right through this one, right?
Right through this one. Paul, what do you got?
Are we going to talk about Toto? No, you guys did that last week. Yeah.
We did talk about
I'm just kidding.
Toto and his wife. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Toto
just a
and
blip on the
Susie, yeah.
map of what have we seen, right?
That's
So
true.
I'm going to go back to 1982. So that's the FISA and FOCA war, and then and I think we may have a couple of others come up in this category too, with the teams, drivers against the sanctioning body and how they're controlling it. It's to do with money, it's to do with safety, etc. But there was a whole big thing in San Marino where all the drivers were locked in a hotel room or a lobby or something, and they were just kind of sitting it all out. So you had
the FISA-FOCA war.
Yeah.
Which was huge.
Yes,
and that's when Max and Bernie wrested control of
right,
the sport
where they were on the
from,
other side of the opposing, right?
They were,
yeah,
They
were the ones trying.
They were on the team side
against Balestra and FISA. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yeah. So there's that. Then you had the FOTA breakaway threat a few years ago, 09-ish.
Yes,
when the teams created FOTA. It's in the Braun documentary.
Right.
Where Braun broke ranks and disintegrated the whole thing.
He did.
That was great.
And
oddly enough, they got a job at the FIA later on. Yeah.
How about that? So did Pat Simmons. Amazing. So you had
imagine that.
Yeah. So you had FISA-FOCA war. Then you had the FOTA breakaway threat, and that was these were two very, very huge issues. And there's a very interesting, again, I keep touting the autobiography of Max Mosley, but both of these are discussed at length in there. And there's some very, very interesting commentary by Max about why, first of all, how FISA-FOCA unfolded and how they were pretty brilliant in wresting control of the sport away. And then the FOTA, which he is absolutely convinced would never have happened. Because of the legal EU legal thing. So it's interesting read if you haven't read it. So there's those two, right? And then we one that I had was the boycott in 85 of South Africa over apartheid, right?
Right.
Which was huge.
And we've obviously had a lot of issues with the big whole Formula One teams and what country they're going to and should they or shouldn't they go there. South Africa, obviously, maybe it was one of the first ones, I think, that Formula One kind of forced into a place that a lot of people were objecting to for human rights issues, etc. And still going right now, right?
Yeah, we had Bahrain, which was another political hotbed.
Yeah. Unless you were one of Bernie Eccleston's friends, and then it was not.
Everything was fine there.
It was a little skirmish in the parking lot amongst two kids.
It's fine.
Yeah. And then, as part of that FISA Focal War knock-on, I actually had Grace the Bernie Eccleston securing the TV rights for 100 years, which wrested the TV rights away, and that was handed to him by Max via Max at the FIA, which was huge. Which right now, Liberty Media is thanking their lucky stars that Bernie did that deal because that's what they own.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in 100 years, Bernie's going to be renegotiating it again, I promise.
He will. They'll bring Bernie back in to renegotiate.
It'll be like on Futurama, right? It'll just be his head in a jar, and they'll just wheel it out like Nixon, right? And he'll just, do his thing.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, that was good.
Bernie.
What other ones? Do you have some, Grace, you want to add?
Oh, yeah. 80-21, I think, has to be on there.
The what?
Abu Dhabi 21.
Oh, yeah.
Political controversy. You both just went like blank, and I'm like, that does go in this category,
I don't
right?
know your shorthand, Grace. So it was like,
I didn't know the shorthand 80-21 either.
80-21.
80-21. Got it.
So Abu Dhabi 20.
For as much as Todd is always like, the interwebs getting at him.
I don't know how this is working.
No, 80-21.
Okay. Yes, of course.
That's what the kids call it.
No, Mikey, no. Yes, of course.
Didn't you get my email? Like so many great memeing moments came out of that. But
yes.
I think of all of them, maybe that's the one we don't need to like rehash the most. But I do think for me, it did give us a lot of great memes, but I think it also, to me, right, when he didn't pull all the cars forward, right, like he should have.
Yeah.
All 7, he only pulled through 5. Of Michael Massey did. And I sort of went, well, that's Formula One. And I think for me, it was interesting to hear all the other people that were like, what is this jam that we call a sport? So I think there was a lot of discussion between perhaps myself or fans like myself that were more apathetic about the race director's job, what rule making is in Formula One, what stewards come up with in Formula One, and sort of how that plays out, versus people who are newer to the sport and they were like, what do you mean that all the team principals call Michael Massey on the phone? Like, I mean, I was early in when I learned that's literally what Charlie Whiting did, was just like answer phone calls from the team principals. That just seemed, and I agree, it seems very odd that shouldn't be the race director's job to like, well, Jonathan, don't you know what they're talking about in Mercedes? And Toto, don't you know what Christian Horner's talking about? Like, that just seems crazy to me that's like some sort of like switchboard. Right. But I also think the thing is that what I missed the most out of that was like the one race where we got to hear all that team principal communication, which I loved, and then it was gone because we'll never get it again. Because I think with a lot of these are things that happen. These are just the ones you get caught, right? Maybe that's what's that old line, like cheating happens, sometimes you get caught, just try not to get caught. And I think that was a place where, had we not had access to the real-time pit wall communications with Michael Massey, maybe that wouldn't have been such a controversy. But it certainly was. Look at that. I gave it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, you did.
I'm excited for Michael Massey.
Yeah.
Here, I'll give him some balloons just to even it out. And so I think that a lot came out of Abu Dhabi 21, not just merely Max getting his first championship, Lewis not getting the championship and that sort of thing, but the fallout that came out of Formula One for a lot of people.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add, and I'm going to lump these together because they both involve Michelin, was the and I know it was on Paul's list too, the 05 Indy.
Oof. Me and Grace were there.
Yeah, GP. Yep.
I had that as a gate.
Oh, you had that as a
Michelin gate?
Indy gate.
Yeah. Well,
it could be Michelin gate. We can put it here.
I had it as as a political issue, and then I had Michelin's, and maybe Michelin. But they also had the whole expanding tire issue in 03, 2 years prior to that, where the rules stated the width of the tire, but they figured out a way during running that the tire would degrade enough that it would widen the tire in the contact patch. And so after the race, it would measure wider than what the regulation specified. So the FIA said, we're going to measure the tires after the race. It's going to solve
right.
that issue. So anyway,
that was another thing when I was a kid and I was starting to get the intrigue of Formula One. A very young kid. It was when James Hunt got disqualified from the Spanish Grand Prix for his Goodyear's his car being wider than legal limit, but it was only because Goodyear had come out with a tire that was wider than it had been any time before that.
Yeah.
But he got disqualified.
Yeah.
And then lost the race win ensuing,
But and this came up because I think it was in Hungary, because this is in 2003 when Schumacher won the title. But oddly enough, in Hungary, he finished 8th, and all the cars ahead of him were Michelin shot cars, and Alonso even lapped him. And everybody's like, something isn't right here. Yeah, something's not quite right. So they caught that. But anyway, all right. Good list.
What about
what's the next?
I got one more.
Oh.
I got Massa, who should have been world champion.
I wasn't sure where to put that, right? That has to go in here
I
somewhere.
mean, it's kind of ramping itself back on the FIA, right?
Crashgate.
Yeah,
that's a
cover
Crashgate,
up.
though.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But aren't we going to have a gate category?
We could, but I think that I wasn't sure how to work, because I think that does stand on its own, even though it trickles down from Crashgate. So yeah, I had it in the political wars as well. That I wasn't sure where to put it, but I think, and especially because we're still talking about it. Like, I think if Massa didn't currently have a suit, maybe it wouldn't be as big of a thing on one of these lists right now. But I think that it's still a thing. And speaking of 80-21, of course, there's some interest there on Toto's part, right? Because like if this gets some legs, he's certainly like, oh well, maybe just kidding, and I didn't concede, right? Like,
right?
Yeah, it's not over till it's over, and it's never over.
So I think there's a lot of weight to this one.
Yeah, I also remember just when John Marie Balestre was in charge of Formula One, and just the manipulation by him and his bravado, and if he liked a French driver was there, they'd get preferential choices. I remember the big battles between Senna and Prost, and he would always favor Prost in different arguments, and
yeah, he was not a fan of Senna.
No, and Senna was not a fan of his. Remember them arguing on which side of the track you could start at, and then that changed to the drivers can choose which they favor, So, but it was a very legitimate argument that just kind of got shuffled under the carpet, so to speak. A lot of shuffling under the carpet at the FIA, I think.
A lot of that. There's a lot of that going on.
There's a lot of big, like, dead body lumps in their carpet.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right.
Watch out for that. Don't trip.
All right, next category.
Oh, wait. Before we move on, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm trying to multitask here. All right, I'll try to be timely too. I thought that under the political wars, we had after the fallout of Michael Massey getting fired and then bringing in 2 new race directors, we had the whole, now we're going to regulate your underwear and what piercings you have, as Ted Kravitz referred to as phantom piercings. And I think that became quite the controversy in 22. And a lot of it was, in my opinion, was the new race directors like, quick, what is something we can enforce? What is a metric we can manage, right? And we can easily measure how many piercings you have, and do wedding rings count? And what piercings does Lewis Hamilton have? I mean, I think it became a whole thing about what was pierced, what was allowed to be pierced, what jewelry you were allowed to wear. Heavy neck chains became a thing because, so I don't want to leave that off the list, because I think that still stands as a thing. It was never really resolved. It was just kind of like we've moved on from it.
Right. It reminded me of, speaking of Lewis, reminded me of the other controversy, which was the blackface in Spain, right? That was a bad one. Yeah. That was a bad one. Mm-hmm. So Max dealt with that swiftly and quickly, and it was done. But yeah. All right, next category.
The next category is safety.
Safety. All right, Paul, hit us with some safety.
Let's hit you with some safety. Okay, well, the first big change was obviously the death of Ayrton Senna, that whole weekend, and Roland Ratzberger, and safety of tracks, etc. Obviously, there's been many levels where safety of Formula One has become a very hot topic. and then it moved on, and then it became a hot topic again when more drivers got killed, et cetera, et cetera. And the track safety became paramount after Senna's death and Ratzenberger's. Basically, because Senna was the untouchable driver at that point, he became the point of contention for all these tracks. And if you remember, all the tracks had to change. There was chicanes being put up in the middle of straights. Even Monaco, I think, got an extra chicane thrown into it, something like that. In the knee-jerk reaction to the incident, but then that definitely had significant and positive ramifications as tracks and Formula One moved on year after year after year, and it became a much bigger percentage and talking point. Even now, every time you go there, it's always, it used to be the thing that the thing we don't mention back in the Jackie Stewart days, and now it becomes no one's actually ever going to fight against making something safer in the lieu of entertainment.
Yeah, because, you get Halo from that, you get the Hans device from that. But that initial, with the death of Senna, kind of stopped this sort of mediocre interest. Jackie and a few others were ardent about safety, of course. But when it got to Senna, that was an eye-opening moment. The height of the monocoque on the sides, the wheel tethers, track changes, track safety, Armcos, everything was there was a huge deep dive over multiple aspects of the safety of the sport that was looked at because of that. I agree.
Yeah,
huge.
I think it really made a major part of FIA's job is the track safety and car safety. That's literally changed their emphasis on how much they had to actually be a part of it, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that was, in and of themselves, any of the introduction like the Halo or Hans or any of those things are big moments and big safety developments. Certainly, the double yellow, the VSC with Jules Bianchi, the reprofiling of Belgium. All of these things, individual safety efforts that they've taken on. But it wasn't really until Senna died and Ratzenberger died that it, like you said, it pretty much put the FIA into high gear, uncovering all kinds of safety aspects. And had that not happened, we may not have gotten Halo, or we may not have gotten Hans had that not happened.
Right.
In my mind.
And obviously spearheaded Sid
Grace,
Watkins was a big part of that. Yeah.
Yes. Huge. Yeah. Grace, what do you have? Anything under safety?
I do. I was going to mention, sticking with 1994, it was a year in Formula One. There's a lot there. I was going to mention the Benetton fuel filter on Jos Verstappen's star, because I think that's another thing that somebody who I didn't watch during 94, but I've seen those pictures and these gestures are more fun when I actually meant them. But
what am I getting? You can't move your hands.
Yeah, Jos Verstappen catching on fire.
What do I do with my hands? What do I move?
No.
Gotta sit on it.
Oh, yeah. So I think that really became something. I think that's something that if you didn't watch in the 90s, that you've seen that picture, right? And you know about that incident, even if you don't know all the details around the fuel, them, we found that the fuel runs faster if you take the safety feature out and everything caught on fire. Right. So it kind of changed the way refueling worked.
Yeah. My dear friend Steve Matchett was on fire.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Good safety list. I agree.
Okay.
Next category.
Oh, we're moving on from safety already?
Do you got more safety?
Well, I just want to go back to the Jackie Stewart era, right? I mean, when the whole... There's a lot, obviously it was maybe before my time that I can remember it, but it was a massive issue, Jackie Stewart fighting against Formula One and his fellow drivers, because there was a lot of people being killed back then. Obviously, we know Senna died in 94, but there was a lot more dying every week nearly at that point. And the fight, and it really took the drivers to sit down and refuse to drive, like in the 75 in the Spanish Grand Prix, where the Armco didn't even have bolts in it. There's been all kinds of controversies and levels of degree of basically sitting races out till things got changed. And Jackie Stewart was obviously an integral part of that. And was a difficult time, I think, and for him. But he was one of the best drivers in the world, and so he used that for everyone's betterment, really.
He did. He used his position in a very selfless manner, in that sense. When you think about Jackie, and if you're newer to familiar, you see this, older gentleman walk around, you really think about him. But to your point, Paul, what he did for safety was massive, and there was a stroke of genius. And if you read his autobiography, which I know you have, Paul, but when you read that, it wasn't really until he was getting so much pushback on demanding track improvements, and so much, because the tracks weren't going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars upgrading their tracks, and he got so much pushback until he switched the narrative. Okay, well, if you don't want to save the drivers' lives, then you need to take a serious look at saving your spectators' lives. And he changed that narrative, and all of a sudden, the tracks couldn't really say, oh, well, we don't give a damn about them, right? It was all the spectators, and when he changed that narrative, flipped the deck on them, all of a sudden, all of those changes started to come through, and it was a stroke of genius on his part.
Because even going back to the center thing,
huge
spectators got hurt in that weekend. I mean, that was a crazy weekend where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Shrapnel, wheels flying in the grandstands, etc.
Yeah, and it is a big deal, and even for Marshall safety, you had the Marshall died from Jacques Villeneuve's tire, Italy. You had the Marshall that was killed with the tractor in Canada. You've got a lot of those things, but a lot of these initiatives, certainly Jackie was instrumental, hugely instrumental, no doubt.
All right.
Next category.
The next category is on-track incidents.
I'll take on-track incidents for 500, please.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's the pin is mightier, Mr. Connor. Screw you, Trebek.
It's the therapist.
I'll take swords for 300. That's S words, you idiot.
Yeah. All right, what do you got, Paul? First one.
All right, so I'm gonna go with your favorite, which is Damon Hill and Schumacher for the World Championship. And we're on differing sides, different opinions. We agree on a lot of things, but I still think this championship should not have been given to Michael Schumacher, because he made an obvious choice after his car was damaged to stay on the throttle and drive as hard as he could and straight as he could to take Damon out, which effectively sealed him the championship.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
How do you really feel, Todd?
Well, you could go back and listen to my very first TPF Stories episode, where Damon Hill spent the rest of his career and still to this day making a meal out of he and Michael Schumacher were arch rivals and all that. That is only part of the story. Really, it was Jacques Villeneuve that ended Damon Hill's career. Jacques Villeneuve was his arch rival, and they put Damon out to pasture once Jacques Villeneuve got there. And so anyway, you can listen to that episode to hear what I think about that.
How I feel about Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, look what happened to Jacques.
That time it worked.
Yeah, he got married in Vegas during the Vegas Grand Prix. So good things can happen to you.
To good people. Yeah.
Looking for a fun way to win 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/play100 and use code PLAY100. That's code PLAY100 at prizepicks.com/play100 for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Right. All right. So that's your offering. Grace, what's your offering?
Well, I think anybody would be surprised if this wasn't my offering, but of course, Rascass 2006, when, Michael was just taking a leisurely qualifying lap and thought, oh, this looks like a great place to stop for a moment, and just pulled off the track and happened to ruin Alonso's
qualifying's
attempt
over.
at, qualifying better
Pole
than
position
him.
for me.
That's right. It's done. How could you possibly get better? I'm Michael Schumacher. I decided I had the best lap. We're good. So, they ended up moving him to the back. Yeah, I did, it was great. Michael Schumacher. I don't know why it was an accident. Because the steward said, nice try. It was deliberate. And then it put Alonso in pole, and Alonso won the race. So, Rascass, always a classic.
And then Rosberg tried to emulate him, right?
Yes, exactly.
But Rosberg did not get penalized. Is that right? Do you remember? When he ran off into the runoff. My car's not slowing down. Yeah.
At Mirbeau. Yeah, it was at Mirbeau. No, I don't think he did. No.
No.
I don't remember. I could be wrong on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
I'll look it up. I'll add it to the notes so that for the next podcast, we'll sound like we knew exactly what we were talking about in this podcast. Nobody will know. We'll fix it on the back end.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. What other ones we got?
We got Senna and Prost at Suzuka.
Senna and Prost.
We kind of
is
already talked about that a little bit, but that was definitely a
Well, then I could flip it and go Prost Senna.
Yeah, there we go.
Next year.
There we go.
But it's the same. It's the same altercation.
Mm-hmm.
But Prost, Senna, that was going to happen. Turn one, boom, out, done. That was foregone conclusion, man. That was huge.
Yeah, they weren't even taking bets on that conclusion at that point.
No, that was huge.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other one. You could say Rosberg, Hamilton, Spain, right? That was
a big one.
Was kind of that was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But in hindsight, it's what Rosberg had to do to win that title.
Right.
He was not going to be, nurses or an aide to Hamilton in that team, and he was there to win a title, and by golly, he was going to do it.
Yeah,
come hell or high water.
Yeah. And obviously, more recently, we've had a few contretemps between Hamilton and Verstappen. You got British Grand Prix.
British Grand Prix.
Yeah, you got Monza.
Yep. Monza had that altercation.
Yeah, not the best.
And then,
friends.
Oddly enough, you've got Lewis and Alex Albon. Twice.
He's
taking him out. What are you got against Alex? Leave him alone.
He's a nice guy. He's got cats.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He does. He has a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
He does.
Although so does Max Verstappen, so I can't just use he has cats as a reason to like somebody.
Yeah. And of course, going back to Multi 21, I think I was misspeaking earlier about the 1-2 thing between Multi 21, but the Turkey incident was a separate incident between Multi 21, but where Webber and Vettel clashed.
Right. Yeah, that was a big
They
one.
didn't have a very good history together. Yeah, I think Multi 21 was in Malaysia. But there was multiple incidents between those two. It wasn't like they were great before and they were great afterwards. They were never really great.
Yeah,
so.
Mark was not happy.
Get off now.
Yep.
Let's see. All right. What else we got?
And
Those are some big
our
ones.
last category is Gates.
The Gates. Here we go.
I'm sure there are people out there going, what about this?
Mm-hmm.
What about this? That's because our last category is Gates, which is where all the really big things fit.
That's where all the huge stuff happens right there is the Gates.
That's right.
Yes. All right.
We're
all going to start at the top, Grace.
Everyone's favorite?
Start with Spankgate.
Yeah.
You got to start with Spankgate. Everyone's favorite.
That is nobody's favorite except maybe Max. The rest is soul.
Yeah.
Those ladies were more than willing.
Okay.
apparently.
We're just going to throw them out because all three of us have all of these.
Yeah.
We have Spygate.
Yeah, for sure.
Where the corporate espionage on Ferrari by McLaren, which ended up being $100 million fine by the FIA against McLaren and disqualification. Huge. You have Crashgate 2008 in Singapore, which denied Felipe Massa his rightful, that's what Massa's suing about now, right? So this was where Renault orchestrated, Alonso came in and boxed, came out, he was leading the race, and then they told Nelson Piquet Jr. to deliberately crash, bring out the flag, leaving Alonso in the lead of the race, and he ends up winning the race. So that was a team purposely manipulating the outcome of a race.
But we didn't find out about it until they fired Junior Jr.
That's right. A
and
year
it wasn't
later,
his
right?
dad that actually was like, hey, guess what?
It was. Yeah, his dad
You
was
fired
the
my
dad.
son.
They should have
and,
given him that cushy
Max
job
Verstappen's-
in the, right by the.
Max Verstappen's father-in-law.
Flavio didn't read the tea leaves there. He should have just done whatever he needed to do to keep Junior happy, but that's...
It's like he forgot who Senior was.
yeah.
You know, like, you know?
You don't forget who Nelson Piquet and
No.
his ego is. You can't forget that.
No,
He'll
that's
bite your
right.
hand and not
so,
let go, Nelson Piquet, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, those of you at home going, you mean that guy? Yeah. Same guy.
That
so,
guy.
yeah.
Yes.
But that's what I always think was the best. Like Crashgate, maybe we would have never known.
Right.
And that Alonso was cleared of any, like, he knew, but he didn't know. And somehow he just, like, slid through.
And it was the
Because I
same
think
for
after-
Spygate. Alonso knew, but he didn't know.
Yeah. And Bernie can't remember,
But we did
apparently.
learn...
No.
He's an old man. He can't remember.
I can't
It's the Reagan defense, but But we did learn that Hamilton, because there was two, hearings that came out of Spygate, and I always joke that the first one, Lewis Hamilton's like, no, I didn't know anything, and then the second one, which is where all the penalties came out, he was like, I didn't know anything. They didn't tell me. Like, why? He had FOMO at the second one, right? Like, why didn't anybody tell me? Alonso knew. Why did I know, right?
Even
That's
Taylor
right. So it was
Rosa
very-
knew, for crying out loud, and I didn't know.
PDR knew.
Yeah.
Everybody knew but me. So
Right.
the first time he was very salty about, very much in denial. I didn't know. And the second one was
Right.
like, oh, why
And
didn't
for
I know?
therapy, his dad crashed a Porsche in a playground, and then Lewis flew over Turkish opera. So it's all good. Everything's fine.
How does the Turkish opera not? I have to fit this in. This has to be in a category somewhere.
You've got to fit
On
the Turkish opera
safety?
in.
Safety
could be good.
Safety.
Do you really want to suspend
Bit
a
of a stretch.
world-class driver like Lewis Hamilton? You put all those
I'm
people in
doing it.
danger. Yeah. And then finally we got Spank. No, not finally. I got another one after this. You got Spankgate, which was Max Mosley caught in a Paul. It's not Nazi. It was a German themed sex
Oh,
party.
sorry, my mistake.
That is what. Yes. That was the court made that very clear that it was just a German themed
Very straight arms.
sex party.
Strange walks.
Yes.
Yes.
Spanking.
Big
and
black.
They all wore black
Big black
turtlenecks.
boots.
This is where we do the
Yep.
dance.
It was a bad deal. So that was pretty much. put
But he
the
won
end to
his court
Max's
case,
career.
right?
And then he did win,
Yeah.
and then he went on to change the laws
Yeah.
about those kind of things. So, and then I also had another one, Liegate. Do you remember that? In the Australian Grand Prix under safety car, Lewis ended up going, Jarno Trulli went a little wide off track, and Lewis went by him. And the team gave Lewis the green light, told him to let Jarno back by, which he did not do. So then after the race, the team instructed Lewis to lie that they never told him to let Jarno back through. Thus, it was just one of those moments.
Oops.
Ah, who knew? Yeah, oops. And then the FI was like, well, we're listening to your radio and the team told you to let him over. It's like,
We hear you.
uh-oh. So they disqualified him,
So I
took
have
away
this
their
transcript
points.
right here.
Yeah, so I've got this transcript that I'm reading here where
Right
they
here.
clearly
Well,
tell you. So
Well, let's
the
And
team-
I
replay the
quote-
footage when they
Is this
Right.
you? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I would also like to add, because I feel that it is unbalanced that Ferrari doesn't make this list somewhere. And I'm also going to add the fuel flow gate as well to the list,
Oh, okay.
where they use the fuel to overdo the
Yeah.
sensor. Now there's two sensors in the fuel because
Yeah.
it's just a matter of timing.
That was
Little timing
wasn't
differences.
a gate.
that's all.
That was just a gentle reinterpretation of the regulations. Grace.
Although technically they
So
were
was
kind of heavily
Spygate.
involved in Spygate, but on the negative side, right?
Well, you know,
they
right,
were the
like
victim.
They
They
were
were
the
the
victim.
oppressed, Grace.
It was
Yeah.
just a couple drawings.
It was 6,000 pages of their
And
manual.
if Kinko's hadn't have called Italy, it would have never been found out.
It's Kinko's fault. I blame Kinko's.
It is the Ferrari fan that worked at Kinko's. But I'm adding Fuel Flow Gate to the list.
Okay, you do that.
Now,
and
what's
then I'm going to add
I'm doing it.
Pillowgate. Then
Pillowgate.
the accusation that Toto was talking to his wife
Oh yeah.
in the evening.
Oh,
You know,
Instead of staring
It
at each
really
other
is-
across the table, not talking. Yeah.
right? Yeah. You
What I
know,
meant to
as
say
if
was,
Susie
please
laid
pass
down in
the
bed.
mashed
Hey,
potatoes."
guess what happened? Guess what happened, Toto? Christian said this, and Fred said this, as if she would do that, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, which brings up this really, we could almost call it the MBS gate, because I think the whole Mohammed bin Salem is leading to an FIA gate, if you ask me. But it hasn't happened yet, so I can't offer it up.
okay.
Watch this space.
I'm gonna just put more to come.
Massive
More
Right.
to come. The gate.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right. Maybe we're the oracles here that we're putting that out there. We're future looking, not just back looking.
Yeah, see?
Right?
We're doing a service, right? Like it. Do we have
As
any
oppo-
other gates that we have to
No, I
offer
like
up?
the idea of Susie Wolf like waiting until they go to bed as opposed to like, shut up, I'm sleeping, right? Like, or how about we spent all day together and you could have told me these things then, or tomorrow when we'll be together all day. Now
Right.
I'm sleeping.
Yeah, I'm going to bed. Turn the light off.
Please.
So there you go. So is there any other gates that we're missing? Someone's at home listening to this going, you're missing the... Yeah. But it's a...
No,
What
that's
was
the
the
only
first
one
That's
gate
the ones that I can think
that
of.
was it Crashgate or was it Spygate was the first one?
Spygate.
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 I think there was a gate before that, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
I'm getting old. There was a gate.
Watergate? I don't know. There was nothing before that.
Was Schumacher there? I think he probably was.
Probably. I'm pretty sure he was.
Schumacher. Leave him alone. Damn you.
Traction gate.
It's nice, He was spending the evening at the Kennedy Center, and he just thought he'd go over and
Yeah.
visit. He just
Yeah.
happened to be there. It was an accident. He didn't know.
There were gates before. They're not jumping to mind.
Hey,
there
remember
was some
that
major
how
issues.
Schumacher got his start was Bertrand Gachot going to jail.
That's right.
Do you know who was driving that cab?
That's right.
Michael Schumacher's
No.
dad. I'm just kidding.
No way. That's a gate.
That would have been. That's
The
that's
Gachot
hand
gate.
gesture.
I
mean.
like Gachot
He
gate.
tried to knife me. Get out of the. Let's put Schumacher in.
Did they whisk him back to like the go-kart track in Kirpin where they held him in a little shack, and with duct tape on his mouth?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Put out the bright light.
Yes, the gate. There are some other gates.
Yeah.
Some Andrea Modena gate that was bizarre. There was it's not really a gate, but it's when everybody left F1, BMW, Toyota, Honda, everybody just gone, right? And I also kind of feel like there's something behind that Caterham and the dude in the Malaysian company that now is under major investigation. The
Oh, really?
seedy business dealings. Yeah. I
That cute
can't
little
remember.
guy looked
Tony,
like Teddy Bear.
Yeah, Tony.
That's it. Tony.
Was it Rodriguez or something like that?
Yeah.
Fernandez.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Tony
very
Fernandez.
shady dealings there. And I also kind of feel like there's probably some gates
I'm going to call that
behind what?
Shady
Force
Gate.
India.
Shady Gate. Yeah. Force
He's making up
India
gates now.
debacle.
Yeah.
I think the Indian Grand Prix, there was some stuff going on there. And yeah, who knows? Anyway. All right. That's a good
Luggage
list. We've got a good list. Do we have good brackets? We've got decent
I
brackets.
think we're good.
Oh yeah, I think we might be breaking out these into some other categories.
Yeah,
I think we're
yeah.
good.
We may.
And if we
I think we're
forget
good.
some,
So-
we may have
so
to
here's-
just insert some for next time.
Well, and here's the thing.
Nobody's going to listen to both.
that's
It'll
true.
be fine.
So here's the
Or
thing.
any.
So if you're listening to this podcast over the holidays and there's an issue under one of our categories, a major glaring issue, leave it in the comments section so Grace and I can take a peek at it this week. All right. But you have until Thursday of this coming week, because that's when we're going to record part 2
and hand out our awards.
Next Monday is Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Hand out our awards. So between now and Thursday, when you listen to this, if we've missed glaring issues, leave it in the comments section. We can seed that. We'll add that to seeding the brackets, right? And we'll add that. And then for the next show, which will be recorded on Thursday evening here in the States, this coming Thursday, we will go through your comments. We'll adjust our brackets. And then the next show, we're going to bring it down. Sweet 16, 8, 4, and we'll bring them all the way down to our top elements and top issues. At least that's what we'll try to do. And so it should be fun for the final podcast of this season. Because
try being the key.
Yes, right.
As Grace said, there's got to be more Ferrari stuff that we're forgetting.
Yes, I'm sure.
I think there has to be more. There's so little Red Bull on here.
It's because Red Bull is squeaky clean, Grace. You guys manufacture
that is for sure
hate.
Not true.
You guys just manufacture hate for Red Bull. I don't know where it all comes from.
Okay, Michael Schumacher fan. That is not true. I just think there has to be some more Vettel than just multi-21. That's really it. There has to be some more.
They stole their own.
Everyone remember.
They stole their own trophies, threw them in the lake to claim claim insurance.
Right. It was PR stunt.
Mm-hmm.
So remember Vettel? Everyone loved Vettel when he came in, and then everybody hated Vettel when he was the arch rival of Lewis, and now everyone loves Vettel. So it's
we
all good.
love old Vettel. Old Vettel is nice. I never liked young Vettel.
Oh, I did.
But Vettel with the bees and picking up trash, you love that guy. This guy, I didn't like.
What's not to like? So anyway,
none of it. I didn't like any of it.
We will do this in the next episode. It'll be the last podcast of this year, and then I think we're going to skip New Year's because that's New Year's Eve, and I'm pretty sure Paul will be out partying it up.
Absolutely.
Him and Kimi Räikkönen.
Jägermeister night. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That's right.
Grace will be all sloshing to sleep by 8.
I'll bring inflatable dolphins for all of us. It'll be fine.
There you go. It'll be New Year's Eve, and I'll be out in the front yard banging a pot in a pan with my dog, taking it on a potty break. So there you go.
Yeah,
that's the extent of my New Year's.
Woo!
Boy,
living the dream.
I lead a Stygian hell life. So anyway, so there you go.
But the pictures are lovely.
They are nice pictures. Yeah, I enjoy that.
They're very lovely pictures.
But, so there you go. So all right. So that is it for this podcast. Mm-hmm. This is part 1 now of a 2-parter. The next one will come out later this week. Part 2, we'll break the brackets down, come up with the top list. And as I said, leave your comments. If we've missed anything, let us know what you think. And then we'll close out the year with that podcast. So until next week, or until later this week, I guess.
Whenever.
Until the next podcast, 868, right? We're on 867, part 1. So part 2 will be podcast 868. So until then, when we come back, and a huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters who support us. We could not and would not do this podcast without you, so thank you so much. And until podcast 868, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camper, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
I don't feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what it was like to drive a car fast, to drive on a certain circuit, to drive a certain type of car.
Looking for a fun way to win 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/play100 and use code PLAY100. That's code PLAY100 at prizepicks.com/play100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
It's time for another season of the Palmetto Porch, an original podcast from Discover South Carolina. I'm Devin Whitmire. Join me as I get to the heart of what makes South Carolina such a great place to visit by speaking to the locals who make it so special. Premiering December 5th, find the Palmetto Porch wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information about our show, visit scpalmettoporch.com.